Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leo Alves podcast. And in today's podcast episode, I have a fellow coach here with me, Ben Cure. I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let him introduce himself. So over to you. What do you do? Where are you from? And then we can go from there, Ben.
All right, awesome, man. Thanks for having me on. So who am I? What do I do? Where am I from? I was born in Georgia, and I've kind of moved around, so that's why I'm going to touch on it. First 10 years lived in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and then through my teen years, actually moved over closer to where you are now. I was in the northern region of Spain, just due to my dad's work. And then I came back here for university after that, and got my degree in health and fitness. And I always thought I would work with professional sports teams. I thought for some reason that would be an easy thing to get into. But after realizing there's a long line of people trying to get those jobs, I went ahead and pursued my certification through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And I went and applied at every gym I possibly could. And I kept visiting a local gym. I would bug them every 2 weeks till they finally gave me a job as a personal trainer. So I started there fresh out of college. Basically worked with them for 2 years before they were bought out by Gold's Gym. So then I was part of a bigger corporation at that point. And then through that, I actually moved up and became the fitness manager. So I led a fitness team after being a personal trainer myself. I kept clients for myself, but I also trained and worked with a team of about 12 to 14 trainers at a time. And in that time, I really I didn't give up on the professional sports training side of thing. I actually developed a passion for working with general pop, like gen pop people, like my parents even, and just realizing how much of an impact I can have on their lives and their businesses and their families. So I fell in love with personal training at that point. Stayed with goals through 2019. And that's whenever I started exploring like the online side. So just kind of seeing different opportunities for growth there. And that's where Cure Fitness was born. I decided to launch my own business, and I ended up in a mentorship group, I think in 2021, and that's kind of where our paths crossed, actually.
Yeah, yeah. In the mentorship, yeah, I joined summer 2021. I also you're a father as well, so that could
Yes.
help relate to a few people. You're jacked, if I don't mind, if you don't mind me saying it, like yeah, if
Thank
you're
you.
listening to this, yeah, Ben's a big guy. Um, and yeah, there was a lot there, so it's quite cool. A lot of things I didn't know as well. So yeah, that's very cool. And was there anything else you wanted to say?
Um, no, I think that covers it. Yeah, I'm a dad of two, and I think that too has also grown my skill set with understanding my clients. Like I'm not saying it was easier before. It just helps me relate to a wider group of people now. So I love it, love my family, and looking forward to where business grows, and takes me next.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So in today's podcast episode, me and Ben, we're basically going to just go over like the indicators of progress that you, the listener, could potentially consider using on your fitness or your fat loss journey. Just because I feel like a lot of these things, and Ben agrees as well, hence why we're going over this topic. You could potentially be overlooking, and there's a lot of mistakes that people make when it comes to indicators of progress. And if you don't know what I mean right now, then we're going to cover all of that shortly. But I thought, you know what, before we get into that all, like in regard to the list that we basically more or less had in mind, I thought it would be quite good to maybe start off with like common mistakes people are making right now when it comes to, using indicators of progress. And I know and if I was to use an example, it's potentially like just using scale weight. And
Hmm.
we could maybe just get into that, like maybe common mistakes people are making a bit more, and then I guess go into like the list of what they could consider.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, on that scale weight, like I'm sure you see this with your clients. I just had a talk with a client 2 days ago, where the scale weight was up, and it was up a good amount, like 5 pounds. And the problem with only watching the scale weight is that it fluctuates like crazy, even for fitness professionals like us. Like we see it jump, it'll dip 4 pounds, jump 3 pounds the next day. And whenever you understand what's going on behind that, helps you better understand like how you should take that scale reading. And for this particular client, it was the fact that she, for 3 nights in a row, ate really late, ate really high carb, and ate a lot of, or took in a lot of sodium. So just a lot of water retention and digestion was messed up. But that was close to derailing her for the whole week of seeing that scale jump up, when really she just needed 24 hours to get back to normal eating schedule and flush out some sodium, and the scale was right back to normal. So that's one right there that can be very defeating. I feel like if people read into it too much.
Yeah, yeah, and like, and Ben agrees here as well, not that there's no value in scale weight, but when it's the only thing that you use in isolation, which happens a lot, then yeah, you
Mm,
can just start to get inside your head about things, especially if you don't, totally understand maybe what's going on. And Ben gave a really good example there with one of the people he works with. I've had various interactions like that on a similar scale with my one-to-one online fitness members too. I think another common mistake is potentially using just no indicators at all. And you kind of just like kind of approach things on the fly on your fitness journey, whereas like you don't really know what's like you just as you're going through it, you don't know if you haven't really got indicators of progress in mind that you're going to use, maybe due to a lack of organization, you're also not going to know if what you're doing works or if maybe
mhm.
you need to adjust anything when you need to adjust something because maybe you're just again you're not taking any or you're very sporadic with taking it. Maybe you take a single weigh-in on the first week of February, and then your next weigh-in after that came 6 weeks after. Like, it's all maybe all over the place, and there's not really any sort of like organizational consistency as well.
Yeah. And you'll catch yourself on high and low days. So that can work. It doesn't really work to your advantage at all. Like you're just going to have very crazy readings all over the place. And then, too, depending on what you're going through, for me as a parent, there's going to be times whenever I can't take the nutrition as dialed as I'd like to. So if I just happen to catch myself on two high days because I weigh in February 1st and February 18th, and those were just two weekends that were just a little bit different than the rest of the month, that can be super defeating. So, infrequent, yeah, check-ins or checking on those stats is a killer.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that? I feel like right now those are there's probably more. The two things that are coming to mind for me right now.
Yeah, I would say just because it just came up, body fat readings, and maybe we get into that later, but the scales that we're using that, shoot the pulse up through the feet basically and read your body fat real quick. A lot of people take that as like the truth. Like, okay, oh wow, I am 10% body fat. I actually did a weight loss. It wasn't weight loss. It was a transformation contest with a local supplement store, and they wanted me to come in and take my before and after and all that. And I was like, happy to help them out in the 4 weeks I think this competition was, I lost like 14% body fat, which is impossible. And it read me as being under 10% body fat, which is not possible. Like it is not possible. 10% body fat was like I'm getting close to stage ready, and I've never stepped on stage. So again, whenever you're stepping on these bathroom scales, I feel like a lot of people see, oh, it shot up, my body fat shot up 5% from last week, and then oh, it dipped 4% this week. Those readings are very, you need to pretty much let those go. They change based on hydration, dehydration drastically. We're talking 5% at a time, like day to day. So again, that's another one. I wouldn't take it as the whole truth. And yeah, give yourself some grace on that and just watch the total trends over time. But I always tell my clients the only way for us to know where your body fat is an autopsy, and I'd rather not go that route because end of life isn't great. So yeah, I wouldn't focus on the body fat percentage either on our scales.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up because that is very true. A lot of people take that as like just the thing. It's like it cannot be wrong. That is
Right.
100% accurate, and they don't realize actually how much error there can be involved because maybe they're not thinking that they're not like maybe being consistent with it. And what I mean is maybe on the first time they did it, it was like a Tuesday evening after they had dinner, and then the next time they did it after that was like I don't know, a Saturday morning. Like there's just so many variables that can impact it. Whereas really it's like something, and we're going to get into this more shortly with a lot of these indicators of progress. It's more like something you want to look at as a trend over time with consistent data,
Mhm.
not just maybe two data points or three data points. And that's really the key with it. And yeah, a lot of people just take these body fat measurements, whether it's at home, like body fat measurements that comes with stepping on the scale, whether it's at home or maybe it's a bit of equipment that your local gym has. I don't know why people get so caught up with it, but yeah, there is definitely errors there too that happen. And like you said, you gave a good example there as well. Um, yeah, on that note, did you have anything else? Was there any other like common mistakes that you think people make?
I think those are the big ones, like
Yeah,
coming down to that scale weight and frequencies. Yeah.
yeah, I would agree. There are definitely three that I often encounter as well. I'm sure there's more. But I guess with that, we can just get stuck in two indicators of progress, and then we're going to expand on each one as to what we think about it, and maybe recommendations in regard to how frequently you could potentially look at taking it. But this is going to be in no particular order, by the way, so I'll just kick us off. Scale weight, and I know we mentioned before that it's a slippery slope just taking scale weight in isolation, but that's the key word because scale weight still does have it still has value absolutely, and the key is as long as you approach it in a consistent manner, um, in a consistent state, maybe first thing in the morning, in a fasted state after using the toilet, and you do that, that's how you take your scale weight consistently. Now there's a lot more of a better idea there rather than, taking it sporadically at random times of the day. So that's what I would say as well. I'm sure you've got a lot more that you want to say about that scale weight too.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing I try to tell people is, whenever we first start working together, we're going to take your scale weight daily, unless you voice that there's some sort of concern there with scale relation. But if you're good to go, we're going to weigh daily because it helps educate you. It helps you understand the relationship between all the things I mentioned earlier, food timing, fiber intake, like why is the scale up? Why is the scale down? Because whenever I have a client tell me, like they'll reach out, like, why am I up 3 pounds this morning? Well, I can go into their food log and say, oh, you had a nice high fiber meal last night. Like you probably haven't used the bathroom since then. You've got a lot of this food in your stomach. That's totally fine. And then sure enough, a day later, whenever everything's regular, like their weight's back down. So it's not that we're using the scale weight to criticize or ever judge our clients. I know you don't either. It's almost like an education tool for you to understand, hey, this is how hydration, changes your scale weight. This is going to make you more comfortable with the rises in the scale weight, with the dips. It's going to help you understand what's really going on. So, yeah, I'm a big push if we can to weigh daily just to better understand those trends because once you understand those trends, they won't throw off your whole week.
Yeah, and the thing with weighing daily as well, which I'm a fan of, or at least most days, sometimes you might forget, is the fact that you can then like get a weekly average as well, which is
Mhm.
really good, and I'm sure you do that too. And because a lot of people, potentially you listening right now, you might step on the scales on a Tuesday and then compare it tomorrow to on a Wednesday. You might then take it on Wednesday and compare it to Tuesday and get frustrated. But the thing is, scale weight doesn't work like that. It takes time for you to see progress. And the reason why weighing daily can be really good is because then you can get an average at the end of the week, which. And any good scientist will tell you that the more data you have, the more accurate something is going to be, and you're going to
Mhm.
have a more accurate average. And then you can compare rather than back-to-back days. What you want to do then is compare, let's say, week one, your average of week one for February to your average of week one in March. And that is just that's just a much more logical way to approach the scale. And this might be the first time you hear people speaking about this again to the listener. But yeah, this is what me and Ben have been doing for a while. And it's why I guess it just makes a lot more sense to approach the scale in that manner.
Yep, absolutely.
Was there
Yeah, I do
anything
this.
else you want? Go on.
I was gonna say I do the 7 day average for sure. Just take all the numbers, add them together, all 7 days, divide by seven, and then that's the big number I'm watching week over week. As long as that is, if I'm in a fat loss phase, as long as that is dropping, we're gold. Like that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, trending downwards over time. That's exactly what we want. And I think and just in case, it might not drop every single week. Some weeks there might be a slight maintenance, maybe a slight spike. That's okay. Again, it's more about the downward trend over a long period of time. So that's something you really want to bear in mind, and that's really for all the indicators of progress. Do you want to if you don't want to add anything else, and do you want to bring up the next potential indicator that the listener could consider using?
Yeah. So we got scale weight, and then we got body measurements as well. So this is something else I'm sure you do with your clients. Like we take measurements, especially across, I like to follow like trunk of the body, like going from like quads to around like chest, maybe shoulders. Because again, that's where, especially like we work with a lot of people trying to pursue like losing body fat. That's where you hold a lot of your fat is going to be in that central area. So again, it's another one that I don't make my clients do this daily, even weekly. Usually it's going to be bi-weekly at the soonest, but monthly is going to be fine if you're okay putting it off that long. But just taking measurements at your quads. I have my clients take the measurements at their glutes, the largest part of their stomach, the most narrow part of their waist, closer up to like the rib cage, across the chest if that's possible, and then possibly shoulders. Just because again, the scale may not move very much. I have this with a couple clients right now where the scale's moved maybe 2, 3 pounds, but their measurements are showing several inches off across the areas that they wanted to target, their belly fat. So that's another one that we've got to take for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like to yeah, all those areas that you listed make a lot of sense. Yeah, the same. I do like the widest part of the around the thigh, so the quadriceps,
Mhm.
around the belly button, and then on the widest part of the glutes as well. And yeah, I just find that's really good. And it's like you said, some weeks, and the reason why I would recommend, especially if your goal is fat loss, taking scale weight alongside body measurements. And I like to do about every 2 or 3 weeks for body measurements as well. Depending on how often the person is willing to do it. You definitely don't have to do it every day. But yeah, every 2 weeks is a really good amount. And I just find that using these two together alongside some of more of what we're going to mention is that you're going to find weeks where, yes, as you said, scale weight doesn't budge, but then measurements are like just dropping really fast.
Mhm.
And people get all like surprised and confused about that. It's like, is this possible? Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you might be gaining muscle and the scale weight might not be, obviously, it doesn't account for that. It's just showing your total mass. So, yeah, and it kind of makes you overlook all the progress that you're making. Whereas, yeah, measurements might be trending downwards, or vice versa. I've also seen sometimes measurements stay consistent, but then scale weight's dropping, and that's why they
Mhm.
can really complement each other really well. And then you're going to be a lot more motivated to want to keep going, rather than if you had just taken scale weight, you didn't see it moving, you got demotivated and you gave up.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And and keep track of too. I just want to encourage like the listener, keep track of where you're actually taking those measurements. Like you said, widest part. And I always tell my clients, like, take the largest portion. Don't try to find the skinniest part or bring the tape real tight. Like take the largest portion, where you're holding the most fat. And if you need to, slide that measuring tape kind of up and down a few inches until you find it. I find with the quads too, just go with the widest part or go 6 inches above the kneecap or 7 inches above the kneecap, whatever's best for you. That way you always have that anatomical like marker. You can go from top of the kneecap 6 inches up. It's always going to be 6 inches up. And then you're taking that measurement there.
Mm. Yep. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Well, the next one that we were going to discuss as well was progress pictures. And I know so many people get hesitant about taking progress pictures, you, the listener as well, potentially included. No one really, not, I don't want to say no one, but a lot of people don't really want to take those first set of pictures just because understandably, you can get very inside your head about maybe to the point you've gotten, and you're maybe feeling, and quote, I've heard people say this about themselves. They feel disappointed about themselves, how they've let themselves, quote unquote, how they let themselves go, for them not looking after themselves, and the last thing they really want to do is take a picture of themselves like that. But one thing I've noticed throughout my career is that no one regrets taking progress pictures once, they've made really good progress. They only regret not taking that first set of pictures. And again, sometimes scale weight isn't maybe you might not notice much happening on scale weight during certain periods. You might not notice much happening even on measurements. But then you compare your progress pictures from like 4 months ago. You're like, damn, is that really me? Yeah. So and it can that is so motivating as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can even say as a coach, like I don't always love taking my photos. I just recently have been sharing more on Instagram. But I'm coming from a point where 2 years ago I was probably my worst health. I was the strongest I'd ever been, but worst total health, highest body fat percentage. And I recently started sharing my photos out there. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. You don't have to do that. Like if you have a good relationship with your coach, yes, you're going to share them one to one, and there should be a privacy agreement there if they're not going to share those without permission. But you're taking these, I always tell my clients, it's not for days 1 to day 30. It's like day 60. Whenever you go back and see your photos from day one, you're going to be so happy you took that starting photo. You're going to be so happy you have that data to look back on and understand, okay, this is what I improved on. I always tell my clients too, I forget where I originally heard this, but like whenever you're taking like the side photo with your stomach, that's where you hold a lot of the weight. Draw a straight line down from the largest part of your stomach down to where your toes basically are. And you're going to see every 30 days that is creeping back. No matter what the scale is really saying, if you're putting in the work, you're sticking to the plan, you're going to see that line drawn from the stomach down to the toes, creeping back closer to your actual body. And that's always super encouraging to see.
Yeah. So if let's say the listener right now, they're thinking, all right. Sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. All right, how would I take progress pictures? Like, what would your suggestions for it be, and how often should I take them?
Yeah, so I think every 2 weeks is fine. I don't know if you'll see as many changes in 2 weeks, so I usually stick to 30 days with my clients just so it doesn't become overwhelming. So every 30 days we do a front, side, and back. And if they're working towards muscle, we might do something flexed, but usually it's just a relaxed state. And I always tell them like just take a video, set the camera up in the same spot every single time, and just stand facing the rotate, get the side and back, and then go in and screenshot it. That way you're not trying to set a self timer and you're getting all flustered. It's early in the morning. Do the video, screenshot it later, and you've got them. You're good to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I say usually every month, but yeah, it depends if you're willing to take them more often. And there's not really any wrong or right answer there. Um, oh yeah, yeah. It's Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, other than, just like with any measurement we're taking, just make sure they're accurate. Set your camera up in the same angle because I've done this before where you set the camera a little bit lower the next time and you're catching like all of your stomach and that's never fun. So just make sure, just use the bathroom counter like every single time and you'll be perfect.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Anything else? Did you want to bring up the next point?
Yeah, so we have, let's see, we covered our measurements and the progress pictures. So, of course, old clothes is a big one that stands out, especially as we come into a new season. I'm seeing that with some clients starting to mention they're bringing out the fall clothes and things are fitting differently. So, that's always a good one to rely on. I think, especially with like typical like pants, especially will stand out. Blue jeans, you'll notice the waistline changing. So, it's always a fun one to see that, hey, it may be an expensive change because then you got to go get a bunch of new clothes, but it's always fun to see that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think one of the more recent really cool messages I've had was one of my fitness members as well, just saying, they're consistently having to buy new clothes, just because their old ones are just way too baggy on them now.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like it's just, yeah, really good to pay attention to just how old clothes fit. I I remember, and I haven't really heard this for a while, but I remember there was a time on social media where there were, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, where a lot of accounts were saying that if your old clothes are making you feel upset in regard to, maybe you've gained some weight and your old clothes are making you feel bad about yourself, throw them all out. Because I
Hmm.
remember that happen. I remember that being quite a thing, and I met some people who said they did that. What do you think about that?
Ooh, that's an interesting one because I have the same t-shirts I had from college. I never throw anything away. It's terrible. Um, it's I guess it would come down to like what your reasoning is behind that. If your reasoning is that you're not going to change, that's pretty sad, honestly. Like if you're getting into an unhealthy position and you're just putting that away so you can continue to head down that path, I wouldn't do that. I would at least keep a basic set of, hey, like this is what I'm working towards. Like, yeah, maybe I don't want the rest because of the style or they're worn or I just don't have space for them. But keep a set of what you were at whenever you did feel your best. Like whenever you do remember thriving, like in all things, being your strongest. Like keep a set of blue jeans from that if you need to, just so that you know what you're working to get kind of back close to, as far as fitting in.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's like you said, it didn't completely make sense to me because then it's almost like, yeah, I'm just gonna, and we're speaking more of a perspective from health here. Yeah, I'm just gonna continue down this unhealthy path and just keep telling, just keep, yeah, just keep going with it. And I don't want to sound like I'm just being mean or something. Like, not at all. That's definitely not the intention. But it's more like, at the end of the day, yeah, you want to be a healthier version of whether it's for yourself or for your partner or for your children or for your mom and dad or for your siblings. When you're a healthier version of yourself, you can be just a better version of yourself to everyone else as well. And because a lot of people say, they would do, and I'm sure people have heard this online before. If not, you're about to hear it now, that they would do anything, for the people that they love. Whereas really, the best way to do anything for the people you love is when you're at your healthiest, when you're feeling your best, when you can function and you're not feeling like shit all the time, to put
Mhm.
it bluntly. Because if you're always feeling just like rubbish, then what can you really do on a you're not going to be able to give it as much to the people around you and to the people you love. So yeah, I think just having maybe these reminders when you were feeling maybe healthier and you were feeling well can be just something to to work towards and be like, let me do something about, if not now, at least maybe if I'm super busy right now and I'm feeling some overwhelm in life, let me at least keep it for when, I know for a fact that I'm going to start taking action.
Yeah. You're not keeping them for guilt to
Yeah,
punish
exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
No.
And I think that's what people, they assume that this has to be like a guilt thing. Like weight loss is a
Yeah.
guilt thing. I've messed up. Like I've ruined a year of my life. That's just not the case. Like you may have gone through a lot in the last, like whenever I had kids, I mean, I was 180 before I had kids and I was 230 after my last kid. That was not all muscle. I really wish it was, but it wasn't. But I didn't sit back and punish myself over the changes I made and growing my business and being there for my family. There were things I could have done better. But I even look back at the clothes I was wearing. I still have the same blue jeans that I was wearing back then. It wasn't going to be held there as this thing of shame to hold over me. It's something positive that like you said, this is whenever I felt my best. Okay, it's kind of like a journal through clothing. Like this is what I want to try to get back to, and that's totally fine. It's a good goal to have.
Yeah. I think we covered that one well. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would say also just on the flip side of clothes, like don't always think of it as negative too. You may already be past where you're working towards the goal and now you're fitting into things that feel great. So I just had a client message me. She's over in New Zealand, and I guess they opposite seasons, obviously. She was finally this winter able to zip her boots all the way up the calf. And she had held on to these boots for years because, expensive boots, you don't get rid of them. And she was finally able to zip those things all the way up. She wouldn't have been able to do that if she threw them out and had just gotten larger boots back in the day.
Yeah.
So her being able to do that, knowing she had those boots for years and now they zip all the way up, was a huge win, which goes back to inches lost, body fat, and all those other things. But having the clothing item there that had been in her closet for so many years, that was just an amazing win.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. That gave me a flashback as well. I was working with online with this guy, and he's based in South London, and he would describe himself as really skinny. He always wanted to pack on more muscle. And I remember one day he texted me and he's like, "Wow, like this t-shirt, the way it's fitting around my biceps right now, like it's crazy. I've never felt this before." So yeah, there is it's not, yeah, it can work in like different ways. Um, okay. I guess the next point, and I don't think there'll be too much to say about this because I guess it's quite similar to what we just covered, but like even watch straps.
Mm.
And I bring this up just because not too long ago I had a message from a one-to-one online fitness member as well, funnily enough, also based in London. And she just simply said, like I know for a fact I'm making progress right now. The scale is not budging too much, but I'm definitely making progress because my watch is going into one of the, I think it's called lugs, into
Hmm.
the holes in which I could not put it in before, which and that really surprised me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, watches and belts. That's another big one to watch. That's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Were you about to say something?
No, that's I think on those two, like those are just fun ones to watch. That again, I think we do always think about like our pants fitting, which is a good one to go back to. But seeing those other things, neckties, like anything like that that just feels differently, like collar sizes, if you get sized up for a suit. I used to wear suits all the time. Now I never do. But whenever a wedding comes up, like I already know my next suit that I have to be fitted for, it's going to be so much smaller, and it's going to be so good to kind of watch that collar size. So that's always
Yeah.
a good feeling.
It's one of those things I feel like watch straps, belts, collars, that they're not things that people really ever think of on like a fat loss journey specifically until you're like, oh, hold on a minute, I need to put it on now. Especially if it's not something you use often, and then you're like, oh, damn, like this is like fitting way better. Yeah, do you want to bring up the next point?
Yeah, so next we got is improved habits. So, I mean, that's a huge one. And I think that this is like a constant thing I found, like just phase of life I'm in. Like it's not that you're always going to have or be able to maintain the same habits. It's just how are you carrying those to the next phase? Like what I did with no kids is way different with kids. Now it's different with kids that are ages, 5 and 3. Like how am I carrying those habits to the next level and just seeing how are they improving? How are they fitting my life? And I think it's really good just to take almost, if you don't journal, maybe just take some sort of a note in your phone of, hey, these are the things I improved on over the last quarter. Like, and it could be it could be, I mean, this could go over everything, nutrition, sleep. I mean, there's so many here. But I think if you don't take note, you're robbing yourself of a lot of wins that are going to carry you to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah, so, well said. And I really like just paying attention to habits and how they've improved as well, because a lot of what we've listed so far, a lot of it is like physical stuff, almost like
Mhm.
scale weight, body measurements, progress pictures, old clothes, watch straps, but like it indicators of progress to and just like seeing or like monitoring how you progress. It doesn't all have to be like physical stuff either. Like literally, maybe did you used to have, I don't know, two beers every single night before, and now you only have like one every other day. Like that's an
Mhm.
improved habit. Or did you, I don't know, just stay on your phone doom scrolling an hour before bed every single night, whereas now you've replaced that with I don't know, 30 minutes of reading. That's an improved habit. So like all these things, they're really worth paying attention to because I feel like people often overlook them because their scale weight didn't go down as fast as they wanted to. Whereas like really, you've been crushing it, man. Like you're drinking water now, whereas before
Mhm.
you were only living on a, I don't know, Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper.
Yep. Oh, I love
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper, but just Dr. Pepper Zero.
Yeah. I haven't, no, I haven't had, they don't really sell Dr. Pepper here in Portugal, so it's not, it's been a
Yeah.
while since I last had it, but they've got their own sodas here that are really good.
Yeah, you guys got all the good Fantas over there, or Fanta. Yeah.
Yeah, Fanta is also import. I don't know about Spain. In Portugal, like there's like a local brand called Samol. Man,
Small.
if you're listening and you've been to Portugal, you know exactly what I mean. It's good stuff. They've like got a diet version as well. It's definitely like newer. Doesn't taste as good. Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, I like. I'm cool with that taste, but Diet Samol, I don't know. It don't hit the same. But yeah, yeah. It's th those improved habits are definitely worth paying attention to.
Yeah. And like exactly what you just said is something to highlight. Like we're not working towards perfect habits. That's one thing that I even I get caught up on. Like you mentioned reading, being able to, you're reading 30 minutes instead of doom scrolling. I college ruined reading for me and like getting certified. Like I read so much and I actually slacked off a lot after that. And it's been a hard habit to kind of pick up over the years. But even just last year, I had a friend encourage me because I felt bad that I couldn't read like a chapter every single night. Like it just put me to sleep. And she was like, "Well, why not just read 5 pages?" And it's like, well, that's like 500% more than what I'm currently doing. That would be a great improvement. And yet I was seeing that as nothing. But reading just the 5 pages, or like you said, instead of having a bunch of beer every single weekend, you now are just having one or two. Like we're not looking for perfection and you being the perfect person. It's just what are the improvements there, improved habits, and make sure you take note of those.
That's so well said, Ben. I've got nothing
Thank you.
else to add. Did you want to add anything else before we go on the next point?
No, let's go. Yeah.
Okay, consistency calendars, I think they're really good as well to use as an indicator of progress because, ultimately, ultimately, whether or not you achieve your fitness goals, it's going to come down to your levels of consistency. And, I think there's many studies that show that a lot of people, most people, coaches included, me and Ben included, I'm sure, overestimate our levels of consistency. Um, it's just easy to overestimate your levels of consistency, especially if I guess health and fitness habits are something you've never really paid attention to. It's easy to feel like you're doing more than you actually are. I've encountered many people like this. Ben's worked on the gym floor for many years. I was on the gym floor for years as well, and yeah, just after several conversations, I realized, yeah, that consistency calendars can just have a very valuable place. If you maybe, do you want to explain what consistency calendars are, just in case the listener is a bit confused right now?
Yeah, I mean, I literally have one on my bathroom mirror right now. I'm working towards a beach trip in about 5 weeks. So it's just different markers that I'm looking to see exactly how consistent am I over 30, usually a 30-day period. And that kind of always, I think it was like a grading system for myself. Like here in the US, if you get, let's just say 70 days out of 100, you're getting like a C, a grade C, grade B would be about 80 days out of 100. And then A level would be 90 or up. So you take that into 30 days and just kind of figure out like what your average is as far as consistency. Because I think a lot of people, myself included, we fall into thinking, well, I'm following a plan for 30 days, so I should get the results of somebody that's been doing something for 30 days. And it's like, well, but if only 15 of those days you hit your nutrition, even though you hit your training for 25 days, like your consistency across the things that matter are lacking. So the big things I watch on my calendar are calories are king. For right now, I'm trying to lose weight. Calories are king. So I have my goals set up there for how many calories I'm going to eat. And every day that I hit it, I give myself a green check mark. And the days I miss, I give it a red X. And that way I can actually start to look back, week over week and say, wow, 4 days out of 7 is not actually setting me up for that A plus grade. and it's not going to yield an A plus result. So that's you're just able to get that visual right away of, okay, this is really what I'm missing. Why am I missing it? And then I can address it.
Yeah, yeah, and I really like consistency calendars as well because like just to use the example of a one-to-one online fitness member, I had a video call with her just like 2 or 3 days ago, and we were just speaking about a whole bunch of stuff. And then, one thing she said, she was like, "Yeah, I'm loving my rate of progress right now. I'm churning out 85% consistency like every month, and it's really showing." Whereas in the summer, like I didn't really make any progress. I kind of maintained everything I did, but I was also getting like 50 to 60% consistency, and that showed. But that was okay because I was going on holiday. I also felt sick. She went on like 2 holidays as well. Because it was the summer, there were a lot more events coming up as well. I think in June or July. Whereas now she's like, yeah, but I have a lot less going on this month, so I've been a lot more just trying to focus on getting that consistency up, and things are showing again. So yeah, maybe had she potentially not taken that consistency calendar before, maybe she would have been confused as to why things weren't happening. Because as you said, when you're following a fitness plan, it's easy to just feel like, okay, I'm following this, so it should happen. Whereas really it's like, okay, but like there's a difference between like, telling yourself you're doing something, but then actually doing it. Or you're just like, and like you might just be mentally doing it. So many people are just like mentally in a calorie deficit where they're like, they've got that dieting mindset, but daily their behaviors are like the polar opposite of what they actually need to be doing. So yeah, it's just a really good way to keep you accountable, help you realize what's going on, paint a bigger picture of like how your year's going so far. And I think it's just really good. And I know I'm just talking a lot right now, but one more thing I wanted to say as well is that I've been using the consistency calendar as well recently, not for well, I was actually using it for something fitness related in June. Like I was looking to lose some weight as well, and then tore my hamstring, so I've like put that on the side a bit. But I've been using it for like Japanese language learning. Just
Uh,
and like every week it's so I'm using it in a slightly different style, the consistency calendar here. But every week basically I have to like check off 6 related Japanese tasks with language learning. Like I can do 3 in one day, I can do 1 in 2 days, but as long as I get 6 by the end of the week, that's my goal. Whether it's like a page in my textbook, 10 minutes of a YouTube video, 15 minutes on Duolingo, a language exchange call with a friend, like they all contribute to potentially getting like one tick, one of the 6 ticks that I need. And like right now I've like got like an 18-week streak, and it's like sick.
yeah, that's got to feel
Yes.
great.
Yeah, and I don't want to like ruin it now. Like I don't want to ruin that streak. So it's another motivating thing to have as well. It's like, okay, I better do it because like this streak, like I don't want to ruin this massive streak I've got going on too. So there's that as well.
Yeah, and I like what you said there too. Like you can't necessarily do this with, let's just say, calories, because you do or do not hit your calorie goal or window.
Yeah.
But if it's other related tasks like a book or like with language learning, and you have 6 different ways to hit that mark, make sure 2 or 3 are like the low hanging fruit. So you can still tick the box. You are still moving forward. Like for me, reading 5 pages, like, yeah, I could probably read 20 some days, but I know I can always get my 5. So then it keeps me moving forward. So I think it's really good that you pointed out, like just getting a YouTube video in, something shorter, but it still moves you forward, something over nothing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like you said, some things you can't really do it in that way because like you said, you either did or didn't hit your step goal, you either did or didn't do your workout, you either did or didn't hit your calorie or protein goal. But for some things, like yeah, studying a language, you can like kind of group them in one day and sometimes I'll do that just because I know maybe in 2 or 3 days of the week it's impossible that I'll do anything because I'm super busy on those days, like yesterday. So today I'm doing like making sure I tick off like 2. So yeah, it kind of depends on what you're trying to specifically aim for, and then you can like just kind of figure out the coolest way. But in the way that you mentioned is what I'll often do for most stuff, and that's how I
Mhm.
set up my one-to-one online fitness members as well. What you're doing right now with yeah, your calories and then like a tick and an O
Yep.
or whatever. Yeah. Do you want to bring up the next point?
Neat. Yeah. We got strength gains. So
Yeah.
I love this one.
Same.
Um, it's just keeping track of how are you gaining strength. Obviously, there's a lot of apps out there now to track your progress in the gym. I'm sure maybe you use one. I use a notebook for myself right now because I do so much in work that's digital. I like to write my stuff down. And that's one of the easiest ways to do it. And I would encourage other people, like just go get a cheap notebook. It's like $2. Write your workouts out and be able to see how you progress on the weights lifted, the reps, the sets, if you want to get into like total volume, time for things, for how much time you're walking, even your step count. Like there's so many different things that we can measure that if we don't, it's often overlooked and you realize or you don't realize just how much progress is happening in the gym for, maybe your 2 or 3 day plan, how much strength you've actually gained on each lift or whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's so well said. I love this one as well. Um, Strength gains, I think they're just really cool things to have, like or specific performance goals. Just because sometimes, again, maybe the listener's done this before, they'll tell themselves, you might tell yourself, I want to lose 15 kg as much as possible, 15 kg as quickly as possible. Um, and that can kind of set yourself up for like unhealthy and unsustainable behaviors and might just get you going around in circles for a while. Whereas if you're like, you know what? I want to try and do 10 push-ups. Sometimes, okay, first of all, your mindset is already going to be in a much healthier place. Secondly, you might often find that what you actually wanted to previously aim for ends up being like a byproduct of those performance goals
Mhm.
as well. Um, with a much healthier mindset going into it also. Yeah. And maybe you could give some examples of what like cool performance goals could be for the listener.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was just thinking too on like I literally this morning I worked out and just to kind of go through my process of it's not necessarily my kind of performance goal, but how I handle my reps and sets is because I have that journal. I go back and look at the last time I did squats. I usually go back and look at the last 2 or 3 times or whatever the lift may be. And I'm able to get an idea of, okay, for 3 or so weeks, I'm around here. How could I progress this today? And it will literally just be an extra rep, or I just make a note in my journal, move slower or moved slower, like just more time under tension. So those little things that you change, but you do that compounded over a month, 3 months, it's going to lead to more weight lifted, faster miles run, whatever it may be, longer planks. But yeah, that's just kind of my process there. But what was your question? Sorry, you said something about performance.
No,
Yeah,
no, no. You
I
said
wanted to
no.
share that.
It makes sense. Like, but just like specific performance goals as well. If someone's like, okay, I want to have a goal in the gym, what could I aim for? Obviously, I said like 10. Put your first 10 push-ups, 5 push-ups, depending on where you started. Maybe your first chin up. Maybe there's others in mind that you could use to give inspiration to the listener.
Yeah, I mean, I've done like mile walk times just because some things are a higher reach. Like, some people think, okay, I need to figure out my run time. Well, what about your mile walk time? How many squats can you get in 1 minute? And taking those benchmarks once a month. And I've done this with guys that could like squat 300 and 400 pounds before, where yeah, they're very, very strong, but it's okay. How many squats can you get in 1 minute with either body weight or just a very light weight? And then we go back to that very easy task, that performance a month later and see how has all this heavy lifting helped or not helped that one benchmark that we set. Same thing with like push-up tests, mile runs. Dead hangs is another good one. Maybe you can't get a pull-up, but you can hang from a bar for 8 seconds. Great. All the lifting you're going to do in the gym, picking up dumbbells, carrying weights, picking up plates, your grip is going to strengthen up. And if you're losing body fat and following your calories, you're going to become a lighter person. So then when you go back to your dead hang a month from now, hanging from a bar, you might have 15 seconds under your belt. So it's these other things, they all transfer over to something else. And then of course I work with Gen Pop. So I'm always thinking, I actually did a reel on this recently, like the mom and dad strength, like lifting overhead, putting your crock pot away, like your cooking pots away overhead, like noticing how doing a shoulder press over time is going to improve that. You pick up your kids and you swivel from the car seat, you do a rotation with a 20, 30 pound kid to the floor. Well, picking up a weight plate and loading it onto a leg press is that with 45 pounds. So that's going to transfer out to your daily life. And it's just good to have those marks and realize that, hey, the gym is going to help your performance outside of the gym. We aren't just doing this. In fact, I do pretty much none of it for the gym. It's for daily life.
No, exactly. Um, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's it on strength gains. Yeah.
Yeah, I think another one that we can bring up now, and we are kind of getting towards the end now, is the listeners probably thinking, wow, there's so much I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah.
Mental progress, I think, is a really good one. And, just an example could be before you never wanted to be in any pictures just because you felt,
Mhm.
so I don't know, you felt really bad about how you felt, whereas now you're more than happy to take pictures. Like that's massive progress.
Yes. Or being in the front of a picture. Like I see that a lot from parents where they just crowd their kids all in front of them. And it's like, sure, it's a natural pose, maybe, but I've actually had a lot of clients tell me years later, like, oh man, this is the first year in a like we all stood in a line where I was in the front, like because I wasn't ashamed of the way that the clothing fit on me or being in front where my stomach could actually be seen for the whole viewer, like so yeah, being able to do that kind of stuff, that's an incredible like mental shift there.
Yeah. Or like happy to, like and you know what, this is a really good one. I think a lot of people feel like this as well, but I remember feeling like this as a teenager a lot, is I did not want to take off my top at the beach.
Yeah.
I guess isn't is this mental progress? I don't know, but I get you could definitely say it is because it was just like always just like this block in my head, for lack of a better word, where I was just like, and initially like it's because I felt quite insecure, but this actually took me a while to overcome, even like after I had been training for a while, just because I had lived so many years of my life about feeling insecure about taking off my top at the beach. And there was like a remark that some girl said that I was like, oh wow, like damn, like I'm definitely keeping it on. Kids can
Yeah.
be mean, but but yeah, and then eventually it just gets to the point where it's like, oh, actually, you know what, I'm okay with this. Like, it's fine, it's nothing. And yeah, mental progress in that way is just is massive.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like growth of understanding it's you versus you, not you versus everybody else on the beach that does not even understand your past situation. Because I've been there and like I worked really hard to feel more comfortable on the beach this year. I have, and I'm working towards it again in September. But I have a better understanding of myself now and realizing like it's not me versus my brother-in-laws or me versus whoever else walks by. Like none of them have lived my life, just like you, the listener. Nobody knows what you've gone through. If you've had multiple kids, like death in the family that slowed your schedule down because you needed time to grieve, like whatever the thing is, like that's mental growth for you to be able to look and say, I'm proud of where I am because I know where I came from, and I'm okay with standing in the front of the photo, taking the shirt off at the beach. Like that's huge, huge growth for sure.
Yeah, nice. And I think you wanted to. Did you want to mention anything else?
Trying to think what else I'd mention.
I think you mentioned that you wanted to. There was like just the point about feeling better, which I guess like kind of overlaps with this one somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's always a good one. I think if you can take note on how you felt in certain activities, like there's just some big benchmarks in my life. I think it's just as I get older that I can reflect on. I'm not that old, but I can reflect on and see like, man, I know I feel better right now than what I did when I did this thing before. And for me, one was like running around the yard in the yard with my kids. Like there was actually a time whenever I was the strongest I have ever been, benching over 300, benching well into almost 500, or deadlifting. Like I excused my health a little bit because I was so strong. But whenever I ran through the yard with my kid, like I could hear myself breathing super heavily like 2 minutes later. And that was something I knew needed to change back then. And now whenever I do these things, like I'm not even like looking back at that. Like I can run, I'm totally fine. So just being able to address like how you feel. And I see it. I just had a client recently go to Universal Studios. Same thing she told me. She's like, oh, we didn't have to stop because of me. We didn't have to stop and find a bench because of me. Like last year we did. Last year we had to cut the day in the park short. We spent all this money and like I developed like a rash on my legs and I was over heating and things like that. And it's like, no, I didn't have to do that this time. So your health, like I said, like you've said, it not only improves you, but it allows you to be your best version of yourself for your kids. It's you want to put yourself in a situation where your health provides opportunities, not limitations. So I think it's really important to slow down and acknowledge whenever you have done that. And it doesn't matter the scale weight, the body fat. This individual client did improve on those, but she improved her cardiovascular health so much in the meantime that she was able to do something like 20,000 steps in a park in Florida and feel really good at the end of the day.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. And she can be super proud of herself because
Mhm.
that's like I said, it's a really big thing that you want to appreciate and pay attention to. Um, yeah, I guess that's it. Everything I've said, everything I wanted to say about the indicators of progress that I could remember right now. Was there anything you wanted to add before I go into the final and brief part of this podcast episode?
No, I think we covered it, but of course, big thank you for having me on for sure. I want to do it again sometime.
Well, before I do wind it down, there's one more thing I thought we could quickly do, and this is more like a little bit more of Even more casual. It's always casual on here, but even more casual part of the podcast. I like to do like a bit of an underrated, overrated. Uh,
Okay.
like just yeah, you could say quick fire, but you feel free to go into as much depth as you want as well. It's like both fitness and non-fitness related stuff. And I'm just gonna get stuck in. So it's your opinion as well. It's completely up
Yeah.
to you. So I'll say the first one, fitness related, is meal plans.
Overrated.
Okay.
Sure. And my reasoning is that you only learn to eat what's on the meal plan. Like, and I hired a coach one time for 3 weeks, and 2 weeks in, I realized I am not going to forever eat 2 eggs, 20 spinach leaves and 3 almonds for breakfast. And that was all that that meal plan was teaching me. Nothing about calories, nothing about how to have flexibility within my foods. It's just too strict, not realistic. And if it gets me the result I want, but I can't continue it, I'm not going to maintain the result. So overrated.
Wow, that's a clip right there for YouTube. Stranger Things. Have you seen it?
Yes.
What do you think?
Oh
I haven't,
man.
by the way, just for context, I'm on season 4, episode 6 or 7, so be careful not to drop a spoiler. I've got
Okay.
2 or 3 episodes left of the final season.
Good man. Finish those up. I like them.
Yeah.
So,
So what do you
um,
think?
I'm going with, oh man, I'm going to go with underrated,
Okay.
but I don't like how long it's taken them to film it. But I'm going to go with underrated because I didn't watch it for the first 2 season or season and a half. I just let it go because I was like, sci-fi stuff. I don't care. But then whenever I saw like the retro, like the mall scenes, kind of like what I grew up in, riding the bikes around the neighborhoods, like it hit home for me as far as like my childhood. And it's actually filmed right there in around Atlanta, Georgia. So I think it's underrated. I think it turned into a pretty great show. We'll see how it wraps up.
Yeah, because I know season 5 is meant to come out next year, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's good. I
What do
like
you
it. To
think? Yeah.
be honest, I only started watching it like a month, 6 weeks ago, something like that. Like I'd never seen any episode before, but then my cousin from England, he's 16 years old, came to stay with me for the summer. He loves things like that, and he was like, just he kept telling me to watch either Stranger Things or The Walking Dead, Stranger Things or The Walking Dead. He wouldn't stop, and then he was like, okay, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go for Stranger Things because The Walking Dead is there's like 180 episodes or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, no, I'll do Stranger Things. So I did, and I'm enjoying it. I would say I like it, first of all, and I love the fact that it was set in the 80s, even though I was born in 95. Um, yeah, I like the fact I just think the 80s looks cool. Like it looks really
Hmm.
cool. I wrote an article about the fitness world in the 80s last year. And it's like timeless effect on what we do today in the health and fitness industry. And ever since then I've just been like, oh, like the 80s are awesome. And that's even just made me think it's even more cooler. But the only thing, like until now, again, I haven't seen the last 3 episodes, so I don't know what's going to change. But I feel like there's a little bit too much plot armor. And by that I mean no one dies. And I don't want to say like apart
Yeah.
from one person, maybe like I don't want to drop a spoiler in case the person hasn't. Or maybe I guess I have. But like yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of plot armor, like a lot.
Yep.
I don't usually like that. That's one reason why I like Peaky Blinders because there's no plot armor in Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you've seen Peaky
I've
Blinders.
never seen it, but
Oh, it's
it's
good,
been
man. You would
recommended.
like it. You would like it.
Okay.
It's set in
Uh,
like the period, I think just like after World War I, before World War II, in like old like England back in the days in Birmingham, and it's just like old English gangsters and yeah, and
I'll have
it's
to give
really
it a
good.
watch.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders is really good. I like that a lot. But Stranger Things is cool too.
Yeah, we'll
Anyway,
see. The last season will make or break it probably. So we'll have to see.
yeah. Cereal, breakfast cereal is a snack.
Underrated
Yeah.
for sure. I love, especially I combine like I make like a protein milkshake with cereal in it. So I get a lower fat milk to save calories, throw in whatever cereal I want because most cereals can fit as long as it's your serving size it gets you. And then you throw in a scoop of protein and now you're looking at a really nice kind of carb and protein mix. I love it.
Mm. Yeah, nice.
Especially like cinnamon toast crunch.
I've not tried cinnamon toast crunch.
Yeah,
We don't have
it's
that in England
super
or
high in
America.
sugar.
But yeah. It's Do you know what? One thing I noticed is that, and I know this was, I said a quick fire round, but like, there's just some things I feel like I have to say. I'll never forget. Um, growing up in England, I loved Cookie Crisp. Like, Cookie Crisp
Mm,
was just, it hits. And then I remember when I first went to the US, when I was doing an exchange year, I went to Vermont. And like on campus, they had all the food. And I remember like, oh, Cookie Crisp was there. Let me go and have some. And I remember it tastes different in the US. And
Mm,
you brought up the point about sugar. And I think they just put so much more sugar in. I don't know what it was, but I was like, this does not taste the same as it does at home. I don't know what it was. I didn't look at the ingredients. I didn't compare it or anything, so I couldn't tell you for sure. But it definitely tasted like there was a lot more sugar.
for sure.
It's like
I
that's
wouldn't surprise me. Just straight sugar, whereas maybe you get like different approved artificial sweeteners or something more natural over there for sure. I would say it's
yeah.
much more sugary.
Yeah, it definitely tasted nicer in the UK. I don't know about now. This happened like 7, 6 years ago, but yeah, at the time I remember like I didn't even really like it. I was like, this is too much. Um, cheat days.
Cheat days, overrated. Um, just personal opinion. I mean, it just completely derails my progress and most of the people I observe, because we don't have any measure of what we're going to do. I'm all cool with flexibility. I like higher surplus days, but just to cheat turns usually into Friday turns into the whole weekend. And you can easily undo most, the last 2 or 3 days of progress, unfortunately, with very calorie dense foods, high amounts of drinks or alcohol, sneaky calories that get in there. So I'd say they can really mess you up. Definitely not
Yeah.
worth it.
And I think chances are if someone's fitness plan has a cheat day and then the nutrition's probably like way too rigid as well.
Mhm.
Um, corn dogs.
Overrated. That's
Yeah.
that sounds terrible.
Yeah, that like I tried my first one when I went to the US. Um And I was like, yeah, this is an interesting concept.
It,
But yeah, I don't know if it's just the one I got that wasn't very good.
nah, they're not. They're all about the same. They're terrible.
Okay,
Even
okay.
hot dogs. I've had two this year, and I don't know if I had one last year. Like that's just not going to be my go-to. Oh,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, and the carnivore diet.
overrated. I mean, and this is coming from somebody that thought about trying that several times, not for secret weight loss benefits, but just to see what it was like. But we've seen a lot of research come out recently where this is just not, having like next to a zero fiber diet is actually pretty detrimental for your health. Um, and again, it kind of goes back to my point of if the way that you're going to reach a result, you cannot continue to stick to it, why are you pursuing it? If this is going to be bad for literally your blood, going to be bad for kidneys, like longevity even, why even get into it? You could possibly mess up something that's going to take several days, weeks, months to recover from. So overrated.
Yeah, man. Yeah, whenever I comment on that on threads, like make a post about it, not always, but yeah, people get like it's almost like they react in a way that they feel like it's like you'd almost imagine or you feel like the way they responded will make you feel like you just like attacked their identity personally. Yeah, people get way too wrapped up into that stuff, man. It's like
Mhm.
yeah, but it's as you said. Anyway, yeah, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate that so much. It was a fun chat. I'd been meaning to get you on for a while. I've been meaning to get a few guests on, and we're in that same group chat now, with a few of the others. And I was like, you know what, let me get Ben on for a chat. I would love to just have a chat with him for an hour or so. So yeah, I appreciate that very much.
No, happy to do it, man. Definitely down to go another round sometime.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Coach Cure on Instagram. It's going to be Coach Cure at a lot of places, but Coach Cure, Instagram, Threads, and anywhere else, it's Cure Fitness. And Cure is my last name. I'm not just claiming to be the Cure. I should have been a doctor, but ended up being a personal
Oh,
trainer and coach
uh,
instead. But yeah,
yeah.
Coach Cure.
No, Coach Kira is still I like that. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
cool. Um, yeah, I'll put all of those links in the show notes. So I'll put your Instagram and threads in the show notes. If you're listening from Ben's side, yeah, I'm active on Instagram, threads, Twitter as well. A little bit less nowadays on Twitter. Um, and yeah, at Leo Alves PT, which will also be in the show notes of this podcast episode. But otherwise, yeah, Ben, again, thank you so much for coming on. Um, yeah, take care, man, and I'll see you around.
Thank you.